Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Global Thought Space on CxO Global TV. CxO Global Forum is a knowledge sharing platform for all C levels across Pakistan and the globe. We take massive pride in contributing to the knowledge economy with the intellectual discourse we have by our members, some guests, and some thought leaders. We also have a lot of global disruptors in our network who've essentially made a lot of policies. They're involved with a lot of framework. And overall, everyone that we call to this show in particular has had significant amount of industry experience. Speaking of industry experience and speaking of experience in general, uh, when I had to decide the topic for this week, I realized that there's been a lot of talk around the buzzword customer experience now. So, what exactly does customer experience entail? How it can lead to growth, and essentially, uh, why has there been a shift from your regular sales to customer experience? That's what's important. That's what we're going to be talking about today. And let me first introduce the speakers that we have available. So joining us today, once again, someone who's a considerable thought leader in the industry. He is Mr. Umar Ghumman. He's the principal professional director, head of Samsung Mobile Business for Pakistan and Afghanistan region. Then we've got the CIO for JS Bank, Mr. Imran Soomro, joining us. And we've
Yeah,
got a
I got
very
a little
special.
bit of answer. I'm sorry, little correction there. I told Kamal about it. I am no longer at GS Bank.
Okay.
So I just want to make that correction. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Would you like to introduce the company that you're working with now?
I'm right now an entrepreneur and CIO at home.
Okay, lovely. That's nothing like it. And we've got someone very special joining us today. He was also part of our roundtable recently held in Lahore. We will be sharing the insights and the white paper for it. Mr. Umar Mohan, he has considerable amount of experience in the industry. He is someone who's had exposure at the Valley. He's come back and he's serving in Pakistan. He's an independent consultant for very many businesses around the globe. So, gentlemen, thank you for taking out time on a Saturday, and thank you for speaking to the audience here. We're going to start with Mr. Umar Ghumman. And I know there are going to be too many Umars. I think there's another Umar that's expected to join this conversation as well. Gentlemen, what I wanted to speak to you about in particular, and starting with you, Mr. Umar Ghumman, is that what exactly does customer experience mean to you? I know it's a buzzword these days, but what exactly does it mean? What all does it entail?
Yeah, you can call me UG if there are too many
Eugene.
Umars, and I'm perfectly fine with being called as UG. So in the office, a lot of people used to call me. Okay, so when it comes to the customer experience, I think this is a backbone of any brand or an organization. So if the customer experience is not good, no matter how great your product is or service is,
Yeah.
it actually does not work for you at all. So I work for a tech company. I work for Samsung as a head of mobile phone business for Pakistan and Afghanistan, and over here when we are looking at great products, great advertising campaigns, and there is one more department which is the customer services department who
Mhm.
actually looks after the backside of the things when it comes to if somebody has an issue in terms of data transfer, in terms of changing from one mobile to another one, or broken a screen, and all those things. They need to go to the authentic service center. So for the customers to be able to reach to the right places and get the right kind of service is very important. But all the more importantly, are they aware of it or not? For example, we launched a flagship phone few weeks back, and we were giving these kind of buds, like I'm just putting in my ears.
Right.
And if the customer was getting it for free, redeeming it from the market, and if they do not understand the journey, the consumer journey, they have to actually punch in certain numbers and they need to actually redeem it, and they'll have to wait for 2 days. Now, if somebody thinks that the moment on a click of a button they're going to get the product the next day, whereas the lead time was 2 to 4 days, then you are actually creating a bad customer experience. Despite of getting all the services, if the promise is not communicated well, it actually does not reflect into the right kind of ROI for the investment that we make. So I'll just give you an example of my own. We were going to buy this steamer for the house, the clothes steamer. So myself and my wife, we went to one of the shops and we were just looking for that. And there was a brand called Sanashi, and I never
Mm-hmm.
heard of that brand sold in Pakistan. And I asked this Green Valley, Lahore, major Green Valley. I just asked him, "कि जी इसका service center है?" And the guy says, "Yes, service center है. कहाँ है? Address बताएं, सारा कुछ." And then we bought it, and we have gotten certain services done from that as well. So customer service on the after sale services, then the customer services at the store level, customer services if you're working for a bank at the bank floor level. So I'll give you one great example of Standard Chartered Bank.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a premium customer and I do not go to the premium floor. And
Same here.
if they ask,
Standard Chartered.
then they asked me, why don't you go to the premium floor um, upstairs? And I said to them, the people sitting in the front desk are so good. I don't even need to go to the premium and then sit alone in that sofa and wait for customized service. So sometimes a regular service, when it exceeds, people are not looking for a very premium kind of treatment. All you need is solution to the problems and quick ones.
Right, absolutely. Thank you so much, Yuji, for that insight. But let's hear a little more from Umar Mughal. I'm going to call him UN for the purpose of this
Sure.
conversation, if that's okay with him. Um, but Umar, when we talk about customer experience, what's the first thing that comes to your mind, and how has this term evolved?
Yeah. So first of all, thank you for having me here. I guess it's my second time, and great to be on a panel with such great people as well. Um, customer experiences, it's nothing new. I think what's really happening is with the advent of the internet and people connecting from one part of the world to the other part of the world, you kind of need to learn how different people behave and how they consume information, how they consume products, how they consume services. So a great example is if you've been to Japan, it's a service country, right? High quality, excellent service is just expected in Japan, right? And just to play, you need to have fantastic service. Doesn't matter what the product is. I'll give you an example. I was in Japan and I decided I wanted to buy something for my wife, right, from Japan, the first time I went. And I went to the mall and I kind of was explaining to her I want something traditional Japanese at the information center. And that lady understood, didn't speak English at all, but spent the time, understood what I was looking for, took me 2 malls over herself, took me to the different stores, made sure that I got what I wanted, bought it, and that's when she left me. She spent 45 minutes with me and gave me fantastic service free of cost. My experience was amazing, right? So now sitting in Pakistan, if you have to service somebody in the US or somebody in Japan, which a lot of tech companies are doing now as well, you kind of need to understand what the service level expectation is, what's the support expectation that customers have as well, right? So that's number one. Number two is, in my view, I returned from the Valley about a couple of years ago, almost now. And one of the things that I've noticed is being in the Valley or US for 20 plus years, I just expect certain things to just work, right? And here, it's the complete opposite, right? And it's in every vertical. It's a low-hanging fruit just to be in Pakistan, if you can provide better support, better service, better customer experience, you can, I'm telling you now, you can probably charge more money as well, and you can attract more customers as well. That would help you grow your business. So it will help you grow the top line and the bottom line. And I think where this comes from is there's one aspect to a company or a business, which I think is starting in Pakistan, but I think a lot of emphasis needs to be uh, spent on this, and we need people to get trained on this and also focus on this, which is product management. In product management, the primary thing you do is you look at, okay, what's the market I'm going after? What's the demographic? What's the competitive situation? Why would I win if I build this product or service or whatever it might be? And what are the differentiators? And frankly speaking, customer experience in Pakistan is one of the biggest differentiators that you can bring to the table. And I think it's starting now. And now you look at people talking about agile methodology. They're talking about storyboarding. They're talking about why we would win. So all of those things have started to happen. We just need to accelerate that, and that would really differentiate you and help in your business.
Absolutely. I mean, there's some things that were so on point that you pointed out, especially in Pakistan. Now more than ever, this can be one of the differentiating factors, and that's what really is the difference between regular customer service and customer experiences. Let's ask Mr. Imran Soomro about what he thinks about customer experience.
Thank you, Anza, and it was very exciting to hear. Umar and Umar, right? Both of them
Yeah.
talking about customer experience and customer service. Unless you're not a consumer, and if it's not a consumer-driven, for example, economy or society, I think the customer service or customer experience will be irrelevant. So, and since we are also, I think, one of the unique economies in the world which is heavily customer or consumer-driven in Pakistan. And this is why the customer service and the customer centricity and the customer journeys are now taking precedent, or they're taking priority with everyone, whether it's some business taking a leapfrog in sort of, a digital space because of the pandemic, or let's say, a service-oriented company or a bank trying to, improve their services and customer acquisition by improving their customer service. And for me, the customer service has to be like, for example, if I'm a consumer and I go somewhere or I log into my internet banking or mobile banking, and by the way, some of my examples will be related to the banking industry because that's where I worked for the last 11 years. So even if I go and out eat at a restaurant, order something in, I mean, I expect my customer experience to be personalized, timely, relevant to what I do. It should be effortless or frictionless. My experience should be seamless. And then out of that, my experience should be something remarkable, memorable, and consistent, So this is what I relate the customer experience to. And just recently, the word customer experience has been, coined with customer journey, all focusing around customer centricity, and along the customer centricity, whichever business builds out a great customer centricity, experience, not for their customers, which actually the consumer of their services or products, but also their internal customer, actually do end up improving their services. And with this improvement in service, obviously there is a growth at the bottom line, or there is, more profitability in their business line. And I'll give you an example. So 5 years ago, you all aware of KYC, right? Know your customer, which is very important for an onboarding of a customer in a banking entity. So, you had to get the KYC information for every customer which comes and opens an account in your bank. And then it was regulatory driven and was hardly updated. So what happened is that over a period of time, the same customer would change their transaction behavior and their, customer journey with the bank, but the bank would never update their KYC or the customer's KYC, which will result in, for example, the banks actually getting penalized, for example, some transactions which are out of bounds because the customer KYC did not allow it, or the customer having to have a bad experience because at some point in time their accounts were flagged or they were closed, right? So the customer will walk into a bank and say, hey, look, why is my account closed? And they will say, well, we saw these number of transactions and we can't keep your account anymore, we have to close it down. And then the customer will say, why, but you never came and talked to me about updating my KYC. So these KYCs were never updated, so it resulted in a bad customer experience. Similarly now, so all most of the entities and banks are now focusing on the digital KYC of a customer, right? For example, do they know their customer throughout all the channels, right? Whether if the customer is coming in through the phone banking, or walking into a branch, or going to an ATM, or using online banking or mobile banking. So this is where now all the banks are focusing to create a digital KYC of a customer, where they would know their customer better, walking in through any one of the channels, getting service, and maybe along the way getting some interaction with a teller or an ATM, or a smart mobile application, which makes the customer go back and say, look, what my bank really knows me, and they actually know what I'm doing and what I want. So to me, this is what customer service and customer centricity is all about.
Right, absolutely. We have Khalid Wyne here, who's the head of customer experience with Falcon-i, Pakistan's largest privately owned IoT fleet management company. So he's the head of marketing and customer experience. So Khalid, thank you for joining us. I believe you had a few internet connectivity issues, but
Yes.
we would love to hear more about what you think, because you are heading that branch at your company. What is customer experience? What does this buzzword mean?
Sure. Anza, first of all, thank you for having me on board. And it was great to hear from both the Umars and Imran Saab on their take on customer experience. Um, from a very early stage in my career, I was exposed to customer experience in an organization. It was a logistics organization that laid a very heavy emphasis on uh, every touch point, catering to a customer's needs. So whether you were a courier, whether you were an operations manager, whether you were in sales, marketing, customer service,
Khalid, you need to unmute your mic. I think you've accidentally muted it. Yeah.
can you hear me again, Ji?
Yes, we can.
Sorry, it's a very unstable connection today.
That's all
I
right.
think
Please go on.
industries that could benefit from great customer experience are the ISPs in Pakistan. Um,
Yeah, very true.
coming back to the topic, gee, so as I was saying, there was a logistics giant that I was a part of for a good part of my career, and their emphasis on customer service was across the board. So uh, whether you were a courier, whether you were in any other part of operations, sales, finance, billing, HR, they had a very strong customer-centric approach to dealing with problems, whether they were B2B or B2C related. And from that, from my time with them, this whole point of being very customer centric to really drive customer delight is something that I've been a keen follower of. Um, I do feel that in Pakistan, there is emphasis on it, yes. I don't think we're there yet, but there are some really great examples that you do see coming out of a lot of industries. As Imran Saab mentioned, as Umar mentioned, his experience with Standard Chartered. I do think they've done a good job of managing customer expectations and sort of interactions in terms of customer service. Um, One of my other favorites is Domino's Pakistan. Um, I think they do a fantastic job of managing the entire customer experience. So right from the time that you place an order to the time that your order arrives. Um, so to me, if I were to boil it down to a very short statement, customer experience is about customer delight that has to be imparted at every stage of your organization by everyone in the organization. Otherwise, it
Right.
sort of falls flat.
Beautifully said indeed. Yuji, are you there with us on the line? I think there's a bit of a lag in your connection. I think we'll wait for his connection to get stable. Meanwhile, Umar Mohan, I wanted to ask you in particular, since you've got that experience from the Valley as well as a polarized market like Pakistan, it is very true that you can't always keep everyone satisfied, and there'll always be people that complain. How well do you manage people and your customers? That also is a part of your customer experience, right? And how do you draw that balance between, the fact that some customers will never be happy versus, also maintaining that good PR for your company? You have to unmute your mic, Umar. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I was saying is, yeah, we've all seen those movies where you go in restaurants and they say the customer is always right, right? That doesn't always happen. But I guess this just comes back to, depending on what product or what service you're providing, you kind of need to have a set base of what the expectation should be from the customer, right? From the customer's experience. So when you develop the product, you need to think about the customer experience before you actually develop it, right? Because you build it as part of your product or service. That's number one. Number two is setting the expectations with the customer as well, right? And I see this a lot in a lot of different companies where they build their product and they just put it out there without setting the right expectations. So, and over again, I think we see people getting disappointed with what the customer experience was. My wait time was too much. I didn't get to the right person. The person was not knowledgeable, X, Y, and Z, right? So setting the expectation is very important. The third thing is getting the personnel trained properly as well. And I think training is a huge gap in Pakistan right now, whether it's call centers, whether it's in person, somebody at the window at a bank branch, whatever it might be. But just training the people to be able to handle customers as well. I can tell you, I started off my career, even though it was engineering and all, on the phone. And they spent 3 months training me on how to handle the customer. That's all I did for the first 3 months. Showing empathy, understanding what their problem is, relating with them as to how you deal with it. There's a lot of soft skills that go into it. There are many, many times where I see where the person who's supposed to serve you also gets angry. And
yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So the best way to actually dissuade the situation is to be on their side and empathize with them and say, okay, calm them down as quickly as possible and address what the issue is. This requires a lot of training. Right? So I think training is very important as well. Then the last thing is, there's some customers you really care about, most customers you care about enough, and some customers you don't care about, frankly speaking. So if you look at companies in the West, what they've done is they have this tiered support or service system, where it be platinum, gold, silver, basic, or 4, right? For the basic one, the expectation that is set is you're on your own. It's self-help. Go online or go on this kiosk, and that's what you will get. The platinum customers, either they've paid for it or they've been a customer for 20 years, they get premium service, right? So they get the best trained people to help them out, the best products and services that they can get. So the tiered system also solves this problem. So I don't think there's one thing that you need to do as to how you manage the customer's expectation and their disappointments and when they're not happy, but it's a multitude of things that you need to do. It's a layered approach.
Right, absolutely. Thank you so much for that, for those insights. Yuji, I'm going to again ask you this with regards to the customer experience. You've had a lot of experience working with different sectors and also working in, like I said, polarized markets like Pakistan, like Afghanistan. Once again, I'm going to ask you, it's not easy to keep everyone satisfied. And how does that impact a company's reputation, in your opinion, especially in your sector?
Yeah, I think that's a very pertinent question. Yes, it's not easy to keep everyone happy, and every customer has the right to believe that they are the kings, and rightly so, they are the kings. They buy the products. That's why we are big companies. So every single transaction matters. Now here we are talking about how does it impact. We can quote certain examples. If you know if you just go to a big hyperstars for the likes, hypermarkets for the likes of Hyperstar and all those places. If one salesperson misbehaves with one of the persons over there, it actually leads to a very very bad impression. And if one salesperson, and if you might lose not only the sale of that person, uh, right, you would be able to see quite a lot of other people who would not who would also disagree with the attitude, and they would blame the organization, not the person. So millions of rupees or the dollars spent on the reputation can easily be hurt if the employees are not fully trained and not actually offering the desired services to to that particular customer. Let me just quote you an example because I'm a big fan of books, and I go and buy books from everywhere I go. So that's my main shopping. So I don't want to name a big store, but it used to be big. And once upon a time, I used to be a kid, and I used to go to that store with my dad on Mall Road. And I would ask for a book, and the guy at that point in time there was no digitization. So I would ask for a book, and the guy would say it's not available. And as a kid, I got discouraged, and I told my dad I'm not going to go to this bookshop because whenever I go, whatever I ask a question, there are thousands of books, and whenever I ask, he never helps me. So instead of like if the person does not have a book, they would say, okay, go to that section and you'll find a similar book. So that is one answer. Now, similar thing happened to me just recently, and I went to a shop and asked for a book, and the salesman says, and he's playing on his mobile phone. I'm equally guilty for that because I sell mobile phones. But he's playing with his mobile phone. I asked him, I need this book, and the guy says it's not available. So I thought, okay, let's play a game. So I saw a book on the shelf just beside him, and I said, okay, I want to buy this book. Say about the book name is called Limitless, and the guy says that book is not available. And I say, are you sure? And I said, yes, I'm sure. And I just pick up the book and say, okay, this is the book you're saying you don't have it. So which means that particular store lost me permanently as a customer. And this is one example, but I'm sure the companies which have actually gone down with the passage of time, that is the customer experience. Let me just give you an example of Amazon. In this world, in this digital world, there are four companies which are competing with each other, and they are also supporting each other. One is Facebook, Google, Amazon, and fourth one is Apple. So all these companies are big, huge, competing with each other at the same time helping each other. So what Amazon did, Amazon gave a promise of early delivery. So what they had to do with that? So they actually started getting the warehouses closer to the cities versus Walmart or the Kmart's of that world, where it was difficult to buy things. And they were also giving a promise that you don't get a product in 7 days, you get a product say about in 24 hours. And this kind of timeline, they actually invested in that particular store delivery through the robots, and they, despite of having expensive places where they could actually rent out and reduce the time of delivery from the city hub to the end customer, and through the robots with a lot of investment, front-load investment. They weren't making money, but they were able to create a great customer experience. And people would say it's reliable in terms of speed. So Amazon started as a bookstore, became such a huge thing in the world. Right now, everyone talks about it, but it is all about the customer experience, the speedy delivery promise, and which they delivered. And same goes for
Absolutely.
other companies which I just mentioned.
Absolutely, absolutely. Umar, we'll hear more about this. But Mr. Imran Soomro, since you've had a lot of experience with, financial management, and since you were working with a bank earlier, I was reading a case study by PwC, Pricewater, yesterday, and basically some facts and figures that they brought forward by last year's study was that a good customer experience means that your customers will be willing to spend more on any good or service. In fact, this is, and I quote, 86% of buyers are willing to pay more for a great customer experience. The more expensive the item is, the more they're probably willing to pay. However, customers are willing to pay a premium price of about 13% or even as high as 18% for luxury and indulgence services simply by receiving a good customer experience. So even the on-spot purchasing, for that matter, uh, if the customer experience is great, like you pointed out with your practical examples, people will be more likely, 49% more likely to make the purchase. Now, with the resources that are available in a post-pandemic economy, Imran, how do you think the customer experience in Pakistan has led to more or less spending and more or less investment, especially with regards to the financial sector?
Um, you know, with reference to the pandemic situation, I mean, there was a time of uncertainty everywhere, right? Whether it was the consumers or the merchants or the service providers, and even for economies. However, the way we have trended through this uncertain times and the way we have all evolved, obviously the service providers and as well as the consumers as well. I think that we actually have seen an uptick in terms of consumer spending, right? So consumer spending, for example, some of these services which were able to come out very strong during this uncertain time and challenging time of pandemic, and were able to evolve and were able to innovate, have been able to do very well, and that has that stimulated the consumer activity as well. Um, and Obviously there is, and in certain segments of, I think of our in certain segments or certain sectors, there is definitely a great opportunity for investment as well. I mean, post pandemic. And as far as the services are concerned, like for example, paying a premium for, this is what I think Umar was talking about as well, paying premium for a better service. I think any uh, consumer or customer will do so. And some of the banks are still operating, the priority banking, the segments and within their banks. But for that, you have to, become part of that customer segment to then avail those services. Just going back to something, I'll give an example about the spending investment, the trends. I actually bought into a credit card with a great, uh, they had a cool branding with one of the biggest airlines in the world right now. Um, However, just the sign-up fee and the annual fee is quite significant, right? So I reluctantly signed into it. One of the reasons that one of my colleagues told me that this is a great card with great services and great benefits. For example, you get into the business lounge and all the airports and so on and so forth. You get miles for spending, and however, it comes with a big subscription service and an annual service fee. But this is the third year that I'm paying up for it. The reason being that the benefits that I've realized from that membership, I think it justifies that spend that I have to do on an annual basis. And again, this is a product. This is a card product, right? This has nothing to do with me walking into a consumer sort of a shop or into a bank branch or logging into the online banking or mobile banking. But this is a card product that I use very often, and that the benefits that I get from that product, which again translate into customer service and the experience that I've gained with this card is amazing. And so I keep it, and I pay premium subscription for it too. I hope I was able to answer your question.
Khalid, Wyne, are you still with us online?
Yes, Hamza, I'm right here.
Okay, lovely. Khalid, one of the other studies that I was reading spoke about the fact that in the year 2021, customer experience has overtaken your price and product as the key brand differentiators. Basically, your customer experience is the new battlefield for businesses to compete on. So can you quote a personal example in your line of work where you felt like beat the competition through your after-sales services or your customer experience?
Sure. Under 2020 was a slow year for business all over the world. So we took a step back and we assessed some low-hanging fruits where we could make our customer experience better. And we spent a good part of 2020 after the lockdown fixing a lot of those areas. What ended up happening was we now actually have a lot of customers that come forward and tell us how happy they are with our service levels. And this coming traditionally in an industry that is supremely price sensitive. And when I say supremely price sensitive, I mean you have companies out there that give subscriptions similar to the product that we have for as low as 4,000 to 5,000 rupees a year, which is it's almost a negligible amount. So my question arises there is that at that pricing, what kind of customer service or customer experience can you provide? So that was something that we had to think about as well. We are not a low price product. We consider ourselves a premium service in our space, both as far as consumers go and as far as B2B business goes. So I think that's where we've been able to make some strides over the last year as well. And it's as of this year, it's also showing with sort of the amount of business that we're getting on board, with the amount of fleets and vehicles that we're tracking.
Great, that's wonderful. Good for you, Umar Mohan. Like one of the concern areas with the whole customer experience and the way it's picking up importance now is that there's a lot of cross-device shopping, and alongside a wide range of channels, it's made companies very difficult to maintain consistency. For instance, if you were to walk into a store at Kul Ahmed, for that matter, and buy something, you obviously have that luxury of trying on the dress and so on and so forth. Whereas, just shopping online, which post-COVID, the experience there's been a very big learning curve for all companies. And that means that across platforms, multi-channel servicing, it has increased. We've been talking about this. And, I just feel like more like stores like IKEA, whether you order furniture online, whether you go to the store itself, these are really the gold standard. What do you think is in store for Pakistan? What do you think businesses here need to consider, especially with different people using different platforms for shopping? And how can we maintain consistency in the customer experience?
Yeah, and that's a very interesting question, especially when it comes to clothes and shoes, right? People want to wear them and try them out before they buy. I think that's where some store policies, some brand policies need to evolve or change in Pakistan. I know there's a trust factor in this, but that needs to be, there's an opportunity over there to actually evolve that. Frankly speaking, Zappos, if you guys remember Zappos, which was acquired by Amazon, Zappos' model was basically you order your shoes, they'll get delivered, you try them on, you don't like them, they have a return box which you can leave outside your house, and USPS will pick it up and take it back, right? And you don't get charged. Okay, great. It's the transaction is being done electronically through a credit card or a debit card or something like that, right? There's also trust that you won't actually wear those shoes and walk outside on soil and return it. So there is, I do believe that overall the mindset and mentality in Pakistan is evolving. It is emerging. There is a demographic. As I said, from product management perspective, you really need to figure out who are you targeting and why are you targeting them. There is a demographic that does use digital technology for payments today. It's increasing, and if you talk to the likes of MasterCard in Pakistan, they will tell you the adoption has gone way up because of pandemic. So that thing is getting solved. There are a lot of wallets which have evolved and emerged as well. Then you've got Easy Pesa, Jazz Cash, all of these payment methods which people are adopting. I think it's only a matter of time that the percentage of people using it is going to improve. Now comes the second part, which is being able to try at home and returning the stuff. I think there's also an opportunity over there where there's a part of society which they will actually respond to it very, very positively, right? I know in the US, the problem we used to have was we didn't have enough time to actually go and try things on. We would go like once every 3 months and just buy as much as we can and then come back. But then as these models came out with Zappos, there are a whole bunch of other companies which emerged after that as well, where they would send it to you at home. You try it out, you keep whatever you want, you send the rest back. So I think there's an opportunity over there as well to evolve in Pakistan. And I believe there are a couple of startups in Pakistan which are actually looking for this specifically. Where close to your house, there might be a central place where they will ship you the box. You can go to that place, try it out, keep whatever you want, and the rest is the responsibility of whoever owns that space to return it back. So there are different models which are emerging. And I think that's going to be very, very important moving forward because that's the way to scale. Gul Ahmed cannot open up another 5,000 stores all across Pakistan to grow their business, right? They need to scale in other ways, and the best way to scale is electronically and digitally. And that's true for most of the brands here in Pakistan as well.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yuji, I'm going to ask you pretty much the same question because we know that just in the last 10 years, omni-channel investment has increased tremendously, especially the last year. I mean, I've seen figures up to 80%. Companies have invested in multi-channel, omni-channel investments for their customer experience and delivery. A big chunk of this also has to do with your mobile experience and how readily things are available online, because more than 65%, 70% of consumers, from the figures that I have in front of me, have been making their purchases through their mobile devices. Have you been focusing on this area and improving the experience for customers at Samsung?
Yeah, we are. Actually, in Pakistan, there is a very interesting way of making a purchase cycle. So a lot of people actually go on the website, check the mobile phone, and they actually go and buy it from their the
Trusted
best
vendor.
retailer who is friends with them. Yeah.
Mhm.
So they actually go and buy it from the small shop, maybe at the Peace Center or in Karachi Sarina Market or somewhere else. Now this was a general way of doing things. And then I have also seen people coming to premium outlets which we have opened initially, and they would take a look at the product, experience it, and then actually go back and buy it from a small independent retail that we generally say. That was
Mhm.
happening. But during pandemic and even before pandemic, we've been trying to look at that. We need to increase our e-com. So we did not have the facility of having our own store. So we were relying on other, you know, these e-commerce sites. We have recently launched Samsung.com in Pakistan, and
Mm-hmm.
then we realized that for the flagships, it's perfectly fine. People would like to buy the pre-order stuff, which is coming in the first 4,000, 500 units out of the 4,000 units which they actually sell in Pakistan for the premium outlet. Now, when we look at further deep down into the data, we realize people do not go for the masses. A product which is like cheaper, below 20,000, people still do not want to buy it from the website. Either they don't know it, or they do not have the credit card, or they do not have the other facility to transfer the money. So, so there is a very peculiar set of people who are acquainted and who have the tools to buy stocks, um, which is like a mid-range, I would say. So, yes, we are exploring, and it could be a perfect time to work on it and develop it, but it is still very, very small as compared to what it should have been. Still, the larger chunk of the total mobile phones in Pakistan is still selling at the independent retail, which you will be surprised represents more than 90% of the total sales of mobile phones, which is like these small shops in these areas. So then the premium would go like 4 5%, and the online sales is even much lesser. So, and if somebody is buying on the online, these are basically the retailers. If there is a special promotion run on a big e-com site, uh, say 11, 11, 12, 12, we realize that these retailers actually go for the bulk deals and they actually sell it at their own shops. We
Yeah.
have in our company, we have launched this M series in Pakistan, and we are not getting that kind of results which we were expecting that they're going to be. Like in India, they launched, and in half an hour's time, they had to stop promoting the product because more than 200,000 units were sold in less than 30 minutes. So yeah, it's a huge market. That's why the impact is bigger. But if you talk about us, we are still yet to be matured because COD, cash on delivery thing is something. Uh, when it comes to mobile phones, the amount is so big, so you're not carrying 40, 50,
Yeah.
100,000,
Absolutely.
200,000 unless you have a facility of that sort. But yeah, I would really like to develop this as early, as swiftly as possible because too much reliance on this independent, unorganized retail is not that interesting. Rather, the organized retail, right kind of consumer experience through the
Absolutely.
e-commerce. I think that's the way
Absolutely.
forward, but it's going to take a little bit of more time.
That's very insightful, and you rightly pointed out a gap that can be improved on. You know, obviously, we had very little time for this one, considering the insights that you all have been sharing. Unfortunately, we've had to come to the end of our session today, but it's been thought provoking, and I would request you all to maybe just quickly sum up what your take home from the session today is. Starting with you, Imran Saab, if you can, just kindly summarize, maybe in a couple of sentences.
I mean, all I can say is, when it comes to customer experience, customer journey, it has to be consistency, the experience of consistency that you give your customer, whether they are walking into your brick and mortar outlet, retail outlet branch, or on coming in through an online interface. That has to be a priority for all of us and for all the, I think, the aspirants and the entities out there that are trying to improve the customer experience journey along with the service, and that should translate into more business and growth and profits, right? And consistency is an umbrella of quality, so that has to be number one.
Right. Khalid, Wyne?
Yeah, Anza. Uh, Anza, for me, I think what sums it up is that I think Umar Mohan had pointed out the need for training in Pakistan, especially in our market. And just to sort of further his point, I feel to deliver exceptional customer experience, you really, really, really need to start by engaging your own employees so that they can start providing an absolutely engaged customer experience, as I said earlier, across the board.
No, absolutely. Thank you so
So
much,
for me,
Khalid.
you're welcome. My pleasure.
Thank you. Umar Mohan?
Yeah, I guess my 2 cents would be so I'm a product person at heart, right? So for me, the biggest thing is even when you're looking at product customer experience, whether it be hardware, software, or service itself, you need to think about it before you build it. And as part of building a product or service, you need to keep the customer experience in mind, right? So the question I always ask, and I think Imran Soomro would know this more, the question I always ask is whenever somebody comes up with a new idea of a product or a service, my question always is, what is the problem that you're trying to solve, right? So when you think about customer experience as well, you have to think about what is the problem you're trying to solve and address it appropriately.
Right, absolutely. Yuji, I'm going to ask you to sum up your thoughts quickly.
I think everyone summed it up beautifully. I'll just like to say, never lose sight of a customer. Make the customer experience so simple that a kid would be able to understand. So whatever facility we are giving, it has to be at a very basic level. Person with a very basic level of understanding should be able to understand what they're supposed to get out of that product. So make it simpler.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And since you're such a big fan of books, Yuji, I read in one of the books that I read recently, the premise was more about love and the fact that people will never remember as much what you can do for them, but people will always remember how you make them feel. So as long as you can make your customers feel good and show them value for money, it'll be a love story for years to tell. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us. Thank
Very
you
well
to
said.
the audience for joining us. Please,
Thank you, Angel. Thank you.
Thank you.
we'll see you next time.
And it was good to meet you, Umar, Ghumman, and Mr. Wyne. Good to meet you. Good to see you, Umar.
Yeah, great to see you, everyone. We will be joining you again next time with another session. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Right. Take care. Bye.